All right, so my name is Miss Pancook, and how you pronounce it is kind of like pan, and then cook, like you're in the kitchen. A lot of people get it confused, but that's it. And the theorist that I'm going to talk about today is Henry Herbert Goddard, and it kind of goes right after Dara's talking about Galton. And he's an American psychologist, and he was born August 14th, 1866, and died in 1957. And he first started off his career as just being a teacher. He was just a normal professor, and he is known as the father of intelligence testing in the United States. He took the idea of the Binet-Simon intelligence scale, which Dara talked a little bit about and you'll hear about later in the Binet. And it is the intelligence scale that is pretty familiar to people. That is IQ, let me grab it, equals 100 times the mental age, which is decided by the test that they give the children. Mental age divided by the actual age. And the mental age, they figure it out by giving students these tests that are simple little like memories of pictures, or like we saw in some of those videos, people fitting blocks into things. It's pretty strange things that they do. It's not like actual like asking students questions. And so that was in Europe, and that wasn't in the United States. And when he was working in one of his schools, he was working at the, let me see where it is, the training school for feeble-minded girls and boys, and that was in New Jersey. And that's what they refer to it as. Feeble-minded is like people with an IQ, according to them, which is lower than 100, which means that their mental age is lower than their actual age, which they would call a feeble-minded person, which isn't really that nice. But so when he was at that school, he decided to go over to Europe and take the Binet-Simon test, and he brought it back to the United States, translated it into English, and he was the one who distributed it all over the United States. I think it was like 22,000 copies he distributed. And he brought it, one of his major things that he did was in Ellis Island, when they were having immigrants come into the United States, they would test them they wouldn't let them in if they thought, the physicians at Ellis Island thought that they were, like, had something wrong with them mentally or weren't as smart as the people in the United States. So he went in with two people who he thought were like experts on this subject, and he brought them in, and the first person did a visual analysis of the person, and then to see if they thought that they were visually feeble-minded, which I think is kind of strange. And then the second thing was that they actually gave a version of the IQ test, and that decided whether or not immigrants were allowed to come in or they had to be deported back. And this caused an increase of deported immigrants. So we were letting less people into the country after he did this, which can be debated whether it's good or bad that happened. Yeah.
Is there a name for this? Like a general name for the whole like?
The Binet-Simon
just a test
intelligence test. That's like the actual IQ, like the test. But
whatever. Sorry? With like the immigrants though, is there like something that specifically like
why he was giving it to the immigrants?
Yeah, like an act.
It has to go along with the next thing I was going to go to, which is eugenics, is what Dara was talking about, and how he was kind of a different kind of eugenicist. He wanted to present, he wanted the idea is that they want more intelligent people in the country. They want the population to grow more intelligently. They don't want the feeble-minded people. And it kind of varies from some of the eugenicists, where he wanted to he didn't want to educate people who were feeble-minded. He just wanted to prevent the breeding of feeble-minded people. So he wanted to like increase, like, he just thought that people who had mental, like, disorders or anything to just not breed at all, and they didn't want to have any of those kind of people in the country. So doing that at immigration would prevent people from other countries who he thought were feeble-minded from coming in, which is pretty controversial. And class, I want you to talk with your partner and teach them and discuss about what you think about that idea of eugenics. All right, teach.
Jets is bad. Jets is really bad. Hi, Mom. But yeah, eugenics is bad.
This is how it is.
It's a good idea, but practically,
Like people just thought.
People almost looked at, instead of like looking at a person with like different skin or different eyes, it's a different person. They look at it as a different species. So just like the lesser being, almost was different viewed as like a different being. A lot of these psychologists are crazy. Like, V.F. Skinner and all this stuff.
idiot battle like a genius kid, like that happened.
All right. So Betsy, what do you think about eugenics?
I think in like ideal standpoint, like it was a good idea. Like obviously we're building this country, we want immigrants to come in, and we want to like build an elite country. But in like practicality, like recessive traits and diversity, and like you can be a complete idiot and have a genius child. And I don't think that they took that into account. And obviously, like this is how many years ago, they like obviously didn't have genetic studies as we do now. But I think from a practical standpoint, it doesn't work. But from an ideal standpoint, they probably meant well.
That's what I was thinking too when I was reading about it. And his actual Goddard's view of intelligence was derived from the Mendelian genetics, which is feeble-mindedness is caused by a single recessive gene. So he also thinks that it is hereditary, the intelligence. So he wants to get rid of the feeble-mindedness and not have them making babies.
The dumb gene. They got the dumb gene.
So I just wanted to go back over the few key points about Goddard, and the first one is the eugenicist, that he wanted to increase the population of intelligent people by preventing feeble-minders from breathing and breeding. He didn't want them at all. So
45.
Okay. So I want you to talk with your partners and go over that first key point again, just to make sure you get it. So teach.
Keep breeding. It obviously didn't work because they're still breeding.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, and I didn't get this answer either, that's why I'm asking. What were their tactics for trying to, was it like going to be, women live with women or men live with, like, what were their, did
I don't know.
Get any information
thought
on
about that
Like,
also.
how are they planning on doing this?
Meredith may have a comment.
Well, I just remember eugenics, that they, the people with, in Brazil, the ones with darker skin, they kind of kept in one side of the country, and then they had the wider, the more white people, and they just weren't allowed to interact. And so
they tried to keep the intelligent, or what they thought was intelligent. Alyssa?
Up until 1985, they, at least in America, we were sterilizing people under a certain IQ level.
Really?
Yeah. It used to be 85, but they've lowered it to 70. They lowered it to 72, but it stopped in 1985.
He thought that every person under the good IQ, he thought that they should be institutionalized.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And so the second key point that I wanted you guys to get was that he believed that feeble-mindedness was genetic, and it was caused by a single recessive gene, and it wasn't because of who you hung out with or anything. It was all because of genetics. So I want you to talk with your partner. Tell them about that. Teach.
Okay.
Single recessive gene causes feeble-mindedness.
Thank you, Brett. All right. Class.
Yes.
No.
So, the last big thing, one of the last big things that he did was when he actually went to Europe and got the Binet-Simon IQ test and brought it to the U.S. That's his big accomplishment, was him bringing it to the U.S. and dispersing it all over and starting this whole idea of using the IQ ratio in the United States and using it on Ellis Island to help it with immigration and prevent immigration and have this whole idea implemented in the United States. So he did that. He wasn't the one who made it up, but he kind of stole it from Europe and brought it here. So if you want to talk with your partner and tell them about that last key point and the other two about eugenics and the feeble-mindedness hereditary. Can't think of that.
So pretty much the test he brought here, almost going to go over that test at the end. It goes to Stanford and no, it's just he brought the test here and that started all this testing and experimentation because they never had a scale to really use until that scale got here and that scale got here. And everything kept on going on. My guy, he revised that scale, turned it into the Stanford.
All right. Does anybody else have any last comments or questions about Goddard? No? All right. Well, thank you, and I'm sure you'll hear more about eugenics in the next presentations.